He was alone in the office at 4 a.m., fingers bleeding, eyes burning, while the world slept. But what happened next will change the way you look at hard work forever. This is not just a story. It's the brutal truth about what it really takes to win. Stay till the end, if you dare, to find out why work ethic is the only difference between being remembered or being replaced. The clock struck 3:47 a.m. The office was silent, except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects. Stacks of paperwork surrounded him like towering cliffs. His eyes burned. His fingers ached from endless typing. He had not eaten since noon. But he stayed. Alone. Focused. Locked in a battle against fatigue. Against doubt. Against the quiet whisper that told him to go home. He glanced at his reflection in the window. A pale face. Dark circles under his eyes. Sweat clinging to his collar. He looked like a man on the edge. Then a sound. A voice from the hallway. Laughter. Two colleagues passed by, cheerful, casual, bags in hand. They had left hours ago. Gone home. Rested. And now they returned, just to pick up something they had forgotten. They saw him. Paused. One of them said, "Still here? Man, you are crazy." They laughed again, and walked away. But that laughter echoed. It cut deeper than any insult. It stung like cold steel pressed against skin. He sat there frozen. For a moment, shame flooded his chest. He questioned everything. Why am I doing this? Why am I still here, buried in work, ignored, mocked? Then came the memory. A younger version of himself. Hungry. Poor. Washing dishes in a restaurant just to afford school books. He had promised himself then. Never again. Never waste a moment. Never leave before the work is done. He wiped the sweat from his brow, took a breath, and leaned back in. Because work ethic is not glamorous. It is not applause. It is not praise. It is the quiet choice. To stay. To endure. To grind. Even when no one watches. Even when it hurts. Even when they laugh. Because someday, the same people who mocked will ask how he did it. And the answer will not be magic. Will not be luck. It will be this moment. This night. This silence. This decision. To rise while others sleep. To believe when others doubt. To move forward when every muscle screams to stop. That is work ethic. The kind that bleeds. The kind that scars. The kind that builds kings from broken boys. The kind that separates those who dream from those who do. The kind that separates those who dream from those who do. He did not want comfort. He did not chase applause. He wanted transformation. And transformation never comes dressed as ease. He remembered the freezing nights when he had no heat, the worn-out shoes with holes at the toes, the sting of rejection letters from companies that never called back. He remembered eating instant noodles 5 nights in a row, and the sound of his parents whispering in the next room, wondering how the bills would be paid. That pain had shaped him, molded him. It had carved discipline into his bones. So when the laughter faded down the hallway, and silence returned like a cold breath across his neck, he stood up, not to leave, but to stretch. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his knuckles, and sat back down like a soldier returning to battle. The spreadsheet on the screen was a blur of numbers, but to him it was a staircase. Every entry he completed, one more step toward something greater. He could feel the burn behind his eyes. Sleep called to him like a lullaby, but sleep would wait. Because success does not sing lullabies. It roars for those who refuse to rest. He knew people would never understand. They would say he was obsessed, that he worked too hard, that he was wasting his youth behind a desk. But they did not see the vision. They did not feel the fire in his chest. They had never stared into nothing and declared, "I will make something of myself." He had. And work ethic, real work ethic, is lonely. It is waking up before the sun. It is saying no to distractions. It is sacrificing parties, vacations, weekends, not for glory, but for growth. He had learned that greatness is not given. It is earned in the dark. It is forged in silence. It is built when no one is clapping, and no one is watching. So when he felt the sting of that laughter earlier, he did not crumble. He smiled. because he knew something they did not. They could mock his present, but they would never touch his future, because his future was being written right now, in sweat, in discipline, in sacrifice. While they slept, he worked. While they laughed, he planned. While they doubted, he executed. He was not chasing comfort. He was building legacy. And legacy is not born from easy days. It is born from nights like this. Nights that demand everything. Nights that test your limits. Nights that whisper, "You can quit now and no one will blame you." But he refused, because he had already seen what quitting brings: regret, weakness, mediocrity. And he wanted none of it. He wanted to look back one day and say, "I gave it everything." Even when no one clapped, even when no one believed, even when the only thing he had was will. He stared at the screen again. The numbers began to make sense. His fingers moved faster. His posture straightened. And somewhere deep inside, something shifted. It was subtle, but powerful. A realization. He was becoming someone else. Someone stronger. Someone sharper. Someone relentless. And it had nothing to do with talent, or luck, or timing. It had everything to do with the choice to stay in the fire, to be uncomfortable, to endure, to keep going when quitting looked so easy. That is work ethic. Not a word, not a quote, not a pretty post on social media. It is a war, fought in minutes, in hours, in days that blur together. A war against laziness, against excuses, against doubt. And he was winning, not because he was the smartest, but because he was the most consistent, the most committed, the one who stayed when others walked away. He was building a foundation, one brick at a time, with each late night, with each missed party, with each task completed in silence. And one day, that foundation would rise into something unshakable: a career, a reputation, a life forged by effort. And when people asked him how he did it, he would not talk about luck, or shortcuts, or magic. He would tell them about the nights, like this one, the moments when his body wanted to shut down, but his mind said, "One more step." Because that is what separates the dreamers from the doers. That is what separates those who try from those who achieve. That is the power of work ethic. Unseen, uncelebrated it, unshakable. Unseen, uncelebrated it, unshakable. He pushed his chair back and stood, feeling the stiffness in his legs. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, casting harsh shadows across the room. He walked to the water cooler, filled a paper cup, and drank slowly. The water was cold, but it did little to wake him. His mind was running, pulsing with thoughts, calculations, strategies. He looked around the empty office, the rows of vacant desks. Each workstation had its own story, its own ambitions. But tonight, they were just furniture. He was the only one left writing a new chapter. He returned to his desk, cracked his neck, and exhaled deeply. No music, no distractions. Just him, the screen, and the mountain he had chosen to climb. He had learned something most never do. Success is not a moment. It is not a prize waiting at the end. It is a daily decision. To persist. To rise. To repeat. The world outside slept, wrapped in warm blankets and soft dreams. But he was chasing a different dream. One that required discomfort. One that demanded discipline. He recalled a moment from years ago. A high school classroom. A teacher saying, "Only a few will ever make it to the top." Most of the class had laughed. Even he had smiled then, not out of confidence, but disbelief. But something inside him had stirred. He did not want to be average. He refused to be forgotten. And ever since that day, he had trained himself to go farther than most. He returned to his work, attacking each task with purpose. Not for a boss, not for a paycheck, but for a mission. To build something that lasted. To create a life that spoke of effort, not excuses. He could hear the faint buzz of the city outside the window. Trucks rumbling in the distance. A dog barking. The world never truly stopped. And neither would he. People often talk about talent. But talent fades without effort. They talk about passion. But passion is useless without consistency. They talk about balance. But balance is earned, not given. And tonight, he was earning it. earning the right to stand taller tomorrow, earning the privilege to lead, to decide, to rise. He had seen people start strong, energetic in the beginning, filled with motivation, but when the novelty wore off, they faded. They found excuses. They called it burnout. But he knew the truth. Burnout is not caused by hard work. It is caused by doing work that does not matter to you. This mattered to him. Every spreadsheet, every deadline, every late night. It was building him. He thought of his family. How they used to worry. How long will you keep pushing like this? His answer was always the same. As long as it takes. Because he was not just working for himself. He was working for everyone who ever believed in him. And everyone who never did. He remembered the voices that once told him he was not good enough. That he did not belong. That he should be more realistic. Those voices still echoed sometimes. But now they drove him. Now they fueled the fire. He embraced the grind. Not as punishment, but as privilege. Because most people do not get this far. Most people quit when it hurts. But pain, he had learned, is part of the process. It carves away weakness. It sculpts resilience. It reveals who truly wants it. And he did. More than comfort. More than sleep. More than temporary happiness. He wanted fulfillment. The kind that comes from doing what others will not. From showing up again and again when no one claps. No one watches. And no one believes. That was real power. That was legacy. He checked the time. 4:23 a.m. Most of the world would wake in a couple of hours. They would scroll through their phones, sip their coffee, and complain about the day ahead. But he would already be ahead. He would already have conquered the hardest part. Starting, staying, finishing. Because true work ethic is not just about beginning. It is about staying when boredom sets in. When energy fades. When the excitement is gone. And all that remains is duty. He welcomed that space. That quiet place where only the disciplined remain. Where average cannot breathe. And excellence is born. He was not chasing motivation. Motivation fades. Work ethic remains. It wakes you. Moves you. Holds you accountable. It does not need praise. It does not wait for permission. It simply acts. He leaned forward. Eyes locked in. Heart steady. Because somewhere out there, someone else was also working. Maybe stronger. Maybe smarter. But he had something they did not. Relentless consistency. An unwillingness to quit. A fire that did not flicker. And in the end, that is what would matter. Not how fast he started, but how long he endured. How deeply he committed. How hard he worked when no one saw. That is work ethic. And he was living it. One breath at a time. One decision at a time. One step after the other. Never looking back. Never slowing down. Only rising. The first rays of sunlight slipped through the office blinds. Soft gold painted the walls, gently erasing the shadows of the night. He looked up from his screen. His eyes were tired, but calm. His work finished. His spirit unbroken. Outside, the city stirred awake. Car engines rumbled. Street vendors opened their stalls. People yawned, stretched, stepped into their day. But he had already conquered his. He stood slowly, gathering his things. Every movement deliberate, earned. There was no need to announce what he had done. No need for recognition. Because the victory was within. This night would never make headlines. No applause. No spotlight. But it would echo. In his results. In his growth. In the life he was building with each disciplined choice. That is the truth of work ethic. It is not loud. It does not boast. But it endures. It transforms. And in time, it speaks louder than words ever could. So when others ask for the secret, he will smile and say nothing. Because the real answer was this night. This grind. This quiet war he chose to win. He opened the office door, stepped into the light, and walked forward. Tired, but proud. Worn, but ready. Because he knew. This was only the beginning. And he was built for this.